We're going to continue our lectures in Analytics for Business Economics with lecture number 4. We're going to talk about commands and calculations in R. And so we're going to dive a little bit deeper into specific aspects of R now. We in the previous lecture, we had this overview where we kind of went through a complete process of loading data and then doing something with the data and then putting together some output. Here, we're just going to start breaking down and looking at some of the actual functionality within R. So without any further ado, let's dive in. So let's start looking at some commands in R, and we're going to look at the R console. So for a minute, over here in the RStudio side of things, we're going to get rid of our Markdown, our code window, and we're just going to look right here at the console. That would be the bottom part of this. Let's say, no, we don't want this right now. There we go, and we have our console right here. That would normally be the bottom left-hand quadrant of RStudio, but we're just going to type in some basic commands. I can also embed an R console into your course site, which I have kind of embedded here in the notes, so you can do simple examples over in this. I wouldn't want to do anything too complicated with these embedded code chunks. There's some real limitations to them. And so you're probably better off just sticking with working with RStudio. You notice in the course, there are a number of what we call R practices, where you have little code chunk, little script windows like this where you can put them in there. And they'll also give you some guidance on as to whether or not you actually got the code right or not. So you can have a look at that. But let's stick to using RStudio over here. We can go both ways. All right, and let's just do something really simple, like 2 plus 2. So notice I'm here at the console, and I can just do something as simple using R as a calculator, 2 plus 2. And then I hit enter at the end of that key, and it runs the command. I get 2 plus 2 equals 4. I can do something very similar here in this little window that I have built into our lecture notes, 2 plus 2. I can run that. It's going to take it a little bit longer, but there you go. There we have 4. And it runs it out, and it gives us the output in the console. But let's stick to our RStudio for right now. And let's keep coming. So 2 plus 2, that's really simple. We know how to do that. It's important to note in the book and sometimes in the notes, you're going to see this, all right, this little greater than symbol, a little arrow looking thing. Basically, that's saying, okay, this is one line of code or one line of output. You don't need to type that. All right, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, don't worry about it. Yeah, so don't type that when entering commands. So let's do some simple calculations. Let's start out with addition, 2 plus 2. All right, we know how to do that. Oh, that's not going to work because I have the @ sign, right? What would happen if I did that? Ooh, error, unexpected symbol. Means I made a mistake. So, but I don't want to retype the whole thing, so I'm going to push the up arrow, and poof, it brought it back. I'm going to delete my typo and put it in correctly. Bing, 2 plus 2. Something else to note, 2 space plus space 2, that also works. All right, it's a little prettier. It looks a little nicer in my opinion, but the computer doesn't know the difference. Okay, we can do subtraction. 5 minus 3. Easy peasy. What do we get? Well, 2, just what we expect. Multiplication, 3, and then we use the asterisk for times. It's just like Microsoft Excel. I'm going to hit Shift, the 8 key, and I'm going to get that asterisk button or the star button. All right, so 3 star 2 gives me 3 times 2 is 6. And then division, that's just a slash, so 10 divided by 2, and hey, we get 5. All right, all as we would expect. Okay, so the one thing that's important to note is that R is going to follow order of operations, right? And I can't remember that acronym for order of operations, but what do? We do, exponents, parentheses, then multiplication, then addition, subtraction, that kind of thing, that basic order of operations that you had all the way back in high school when you learned that. So what are we going to do? 3 plus 2, parentheses first, times 2. So I'm going to predict that this is going to be 3 plus 2, which is 5, times 2 is 10, right? Because the 3 plus 2 is in parentheses. And what do we get? Hey, cool, we get 10. All right, we'll keep going. All right, It's worth noting that R follows the order of operations. Oh, look, I even brought that in. PEMDAS. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, from left to right, and addition, subtraction, from left to right. Okay? That's just the basic order of operations. If what I did was this, I did 3 plus 2 times 2, what I would get is 2 times 2 is 4 plus 3 is 7. And what do we get? 7, because I didn't have those parentheses in there. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is something called the assignment operator. Let me make this just a little bit there. That's a little better. All right, something called the assignment operator. And that's this little arrow looking thing. And so if I want to take and store a value or some piece of information inside we'll call it a variable. I like to call it an object. They're not always objects, but basically you can think of this as a box that holds something. So in this case, we have a box named X that's going to hold the number 3. All right, and so how we'll do that is we come right over here to our console, X, and then we use the assignment operator, 3. And nothing happens. Well, why does nothing happen? Because we diverted the output from the console to that box named X. So 3, where does it go? It goes into X. So if I want to get the 3 back out, I just tell it print X. And boom, it prints 3 for me. Incidentally, another way we could do that, although I don't really see why it's all that useful, is to change the direction of the arrow. You could make the arrow point the other way, so point from left to right, and then the stuff on the left-hand side will go into the right-hand side. Just think of it like an arrow. All right, and that still gives you 3 inside of X. All right, so the next thing we can do is we can use that variable in calculations. So if we do X times 2, what should I get? Well, X is 3. 3 times 2 is 6, so I'd better get 6, and I do. So nifty-difty. It's really important, though, that we take a step back and really understand the difference between the equal sign and the assignment operator. So both can be used for assignments in R. But the assignment operator, this is the traditional one. It's the one that's been around the longest. And I don't fully understand the difference between the two. It has something to do with scoping. And so whenever I take and I want to put something into a variable that I want to show up over here in this global environment, I'm going to use that assignment operator. Okay, the equal sign will work, but it's more traditional and just considered more proper to use this assignment operator, depending either direction you want to go. On the other hand, inside of a function, all right, something like what we see right here. I want to take the mean of a bunch of numbers. I need to use, and I'm using a named argument, which we'll talk about later when we talk about functions and arguments. I want to use this equal sign. So anytime I'm putting something inside of a function, I want to use the equal sign. Anytime I'm trying to store something in this global environment, I'm going to use the assignment operator. That's not probably totally technically the extent of the difference between the two, but if you do that, you'll be safe. The one thing that will get you in trouble sometimes is if I do something like this. I'm going to copy this function just like this. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to change that to the assignment operator. Okay. And I want to, first of all, I'm going to clear out my environment so I don't have anything else in here. I did that by clicking the broom. And now I'm going to do this mean. All right. I'm going to execute this function. And what happens? All right. So I got the mean. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The average of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is 3. And so that worked. But you can also see I've got a value here in the global environment called X. So really what happened here was 2 things. Okay, we just put 2 bits together. The first bit that happened was this inner part. Let me just push the up button. All right, this inner part right here where we assigned the vector or the list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and don't worry about this C function for right now. I'll tell you about that in a minute. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to X, and then I took the mean of X. That's what happened. As opposed to if what I do is this, and I put this equal sign in here. And now I'm going to go ahead and clear this global environment out again. And bang. Notice I get the 3, so it calculated the mean just fine, but didn't put anything in the global environment. There's reasons why you would want to do that. All right. One big place where you can't do this is the definition of functions. This right down, this right over here. That's not allowed. You can't do that, but we haven't really gotten there yet, so I'm not going to get too worried about it. Okay. Any questions so far? What you need to do, schedule an appointment with me, send me a message, and I'll be happy to get back with you. All right. See you in the next lecture.